Okay, it is not 1 minute after 9:45. So apologize for the later Facebook Live, but I had some things to do and I had to take a quick peek at the new data. So I want to make sure I did that before we started here. So I'll give a couple seconds here for everybody to kind of get going, make sure the feed's working, so I don't end up talking to myself. You know the usual. Thanks for joining me. I'm meteorologist Aaron Tuttle. And again, it's best if you want to follow me on Facebook Live is to go to the actual Facebook page, AT's Weather, and at the top where it says follow, you can click on get notifications when going live, and that way you won't miss any of these. So I only go live when I'm talking about severe weather upcoming, and then or when I'm actually covering severe weather, which I don't do unless it's going to be tornadic. I cover tornadoes, but I do not cover just garden variety typical Oklahoma spring storms, unless it's some extreme event, typically a wind event where you've got 80 plus mile per hour winds, widespread. So I like to keep that limited just because of my time constraints, and that's the most important aspect when it comes to safety and saving your life. So I want to put my main focus on that for you. So again, thanks for joining me. I'm meteorologist Aaron Tuttle. And I've had a lot of new subscribers, new followers over the last few weeks, and I appreciate that. You guys have been sharing these Facebook Live videos. Share this one now. The more people that are informed, the more people realize there's an alternative to the television stations to get your weather information that doesn't come with a lot of hype or anxiety or anything like that. You can get it here. Now, there's a caveat to that because what I'm going to tell you tonight is not necessarily good news. And so before I get into that, first thing I want to tell you is what I'm about to say, do not panic. Oklahoma is a big state. When we see these storms, in generalities, as far as all the area coverage, very few people are affected. In other words, these storms don't affect everybody in the state. A lot of people that live in Oklahoma, matter of fact, the majority of people that live in Oklahoma never see a tornado in person. I want you to put all that in the back of your mind when you hear this information I'm going to tell you tonight. Now, behind the scenes, when I look at this data, for me, very concerning. Now, when I'm concerned, you can be concerned. But all that means is, and if you haven't had it by now, you need to get your butt in gear, and that is to have a plan of action should a tornado affect you. So in other words, you know exactly where to go, you know how to get there, you know who you're taking with you, and you know what you're taking with you. Now, as far as what that is, that's up to you. I can tell you it's always the lowest part of the building. It's always the most center part of the building. If it's a home, bathrooms are good, closets are good. If you want to grab a mattress, blankets, whatever to put on top of you for flying debris, that's all good. Sports equipment for the kids, helmets, pads, that's all good. Again, use whatever you've got at your disposal to increase your safety in a situation like this. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the weather information. And I like to get into the maps, so we'll do that now. Okay, so first off, Storm Prediction Center has a moderate risk of severe storms over northwest Oklahoma, enhanced risk here from central to southwestern Oklahoma. Now here's the deal. Don't pay attention too much to this. It's going to change. It might even change dramatically, both in the category of intensity and the location, because looking at the data today and tonight, I don't necessarily agree with where this is drawn, but that's not a big deal. We're meteorologists, and they're going to look at the same data too, and they're going to change their mind. I can guarantee it. That's just the way it goes. As we get closer to these events, we're able to fine tune the most likely location for severe weather. And again, I'm focused on the tornado threat specifically. So they don't do tornado threats this far out. So the outlook that'll come in tonight, I think they do one around midnight or so. That should have a tornado risk with it. And a new update will come in like around 7 o'clock in the morning. So we'll get to all that later. All right. So this is what I want to get through to you. We've got a situation for Thursday that is much different than we've seen the entire season. Most of these events, as I've told you before, we've lacked deep moisture. So that limits the instability. We've also had those dew point values that were on the low end. 50s to near 60. Tornadoes are very hard to develop in that type of environment. They need like those really good mid to upper 60, even low 70 dew points. All right, we're going to have that for tomorrow. Now, with the combined daytime heating, we're going to get CAPE values, which is instability, up around 5,500 joules. Now that is extremely high. Extremely. You really only need, for severe weather, generality speaking, about 2,000 CAPE will do it. 5,000 or 6,000, that's just like pouring jet fuel on a fire. So the atmosphere is going to have plenty of instability, plenty of energy to work with for any storm that does develop. The second ingredient here, and that is these little wind barbs on the map. You've got a red, blue, and black. They represent different levels at which the winds are blowing from. So we have a wind coming in out of the southeast at the surface. We have a wind in the few thousand feet off the ground coming in the south-southwest. Then you have a southwest wind coming in a few thousand feet higher than that. What that does is it causes the whole column to spin. Well, that spinning motion is what causes the mesocyclone to develop, which causes the tornado. And the greater the speed shear and the greater the directional shear, the better the odds of seeing a tornado. So in other words, tomorrow the model parameters are saying ideal situation for tornadic thunderstorms. Way better than we've seen all season long. Now, I can also tell you this. I've seen this type of situation many times and got concerned about it. And then for whatever reason, things didn't happen as the model suggested. So that is always a small thing to keep in the back of your mind. Nothing is ever completely certain in the weather business. It is an inexact science, and we are fortune tellers, and we're predicting the future, and trust me, that's not easy. Okay, so now you know the setup for Thursday. Now, here's the details that we're going to get into. This is not necessarily your typical dry line type thunderstorm initiation. The reason why I say that is because the dry line is actually going to be out here in the Texas Panhandle, way out here. Okay, so a few counties in. The actual storms themselves will be developing about in this area here. Now, it's actually could shift just a little more to the east where they develop. But the point is, they're not developing anywhere near the dry line. You're asking, okay, so why is that? Again, a different scenario than we're used to seeing. What we have here in this region that comes in just like this, so right about in here, the air flowing in here is what we call the theta E axis. The theta E axis is a very narrow, warm, unstable, moist corridor of convergence. Okay. Second thing, now sometimes theta E axis appear all the time. Typically, it's part of the deal. The difference this time around is that the models erode the cap completely. They blow it away. The cap, or the inversion layer in the atmosphere, is what prevents storms from forming. So you always want a good strong cap if you don't want severe weather. In this particular case, we're not going to have a cap tomorrow, which means a lot of these supercell storms will just start bubbling up in the afternoon once temperatures get into a certain level. And so that's, again, a little bit different. Does not depend upon brute forcing from an upper level storm system. Does not depend upon dryline circulation. Good old-fashioned, just some daytime heating and wind shear and instability. And you've got supercell storms that will be producing tornadoes. So, like I said, it's a guarantee as far as that outcome goes, as far as I can tell you, based off the data and historic analogs and all that kind of stuff. So let's take a look. This is a model representation. By no means will it be 100% accurate, but it'll give you an idea. So by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's got storms here in western Oklahoma and southwest Oklahoma down to northwest Texas. Okay, so you fast forward about 3 hours. You've got storms now in northwest Oklahoma from Enid down south a little bit. You got a cluster down here in southwest. And then as we go into, let's see, what time is this? It's 7 o'clock in the evening. As we head one more 3-hour period, they move eastward I-35 and they start to die out. Again, these are daytime heat driven. So it means once the sun begins to set, the energy disappears and they start to slowly die. The cap rebuilds, that kind of deal. So that's why it's a little bit different situation than we normally are accustomed to. Now, this is just one model output, and I don't necessarily believe the way that the storms are looking on that and where they're going. Don't pay attention to that. Just to give you an idea, there's going to be a kind of a shorter window from, let's say, 4:30 to 8 o'clock for most of the activity of storms over west central and central Oklahoma. And those will be producing tornadoes. So could we see a tornado in and around the Oklahoma City area? Yes, we could. Same thing a little bit out west, same thing a little north, same thing a little south. One of the issues that we can look at when these storms do go up is the sounding in the atmosphere. So this is taken about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We can give you an idea. So on the sounding situation, the profile, this is getting a little geeky technical stuff here, but very low condensation levels, no cap at all, good shear in this area. We've got little what they call a kidney bean storm slinky approach, which just means very good turning with height. We also had Cape values up around 5 to 6,000, no cap at all, and on the effective, we call the kind of like the tornado parameter index. It's saying that this would be a situation where we could see some stronger tornadoes, not the weak ones that we'd normally see. I haven't looked at the 24-hour yet, so we'll see what this looks like in this particular spot I picked. And I may have to change it because when a storm comes in, sometimes it'll affect the data, but looks like it didn't on this time, so I picked a good spot. Now here it says a possible hazard type is a PDS tornado, which is a particularly dangerous tornado. What that means is those high-end tornadoes, EF4, EF5, and that's this scale down here. Hail size up around 4.5 to 5 inches in diameter. All these indications down here all indicate strong supercells, and again the CAPE and the CAP, we've already talked about that. So this is a look at the vertical profile of the atmosphere, which is supportive of this outcome. So that's why I tell you I'm concerned, because this is what the data tells me, and so now I'm going to tell you that. But again, as we started this broadcast with, and if you missed it, when I stop this, go back and watch it. You need to hear the facts on tornadoes and all that kind of stuff, and what you need to do. Keep in mind that the majority of tornadoes, regardless of what this thing tells us tonight, the majority, we're talking 2/3, are the weak, piddly tornadoes that don't do a lot of damage, the EF0s, and then the weaker end EF1s. That's the best news I've got for you. They can be scary, but with adequate shelter, you're just fine. As we get into the 5% of all tornadoes, that's the EF4, EF5 category. Very rare. And yes, we do see them in Oklahoma, but we see them very rarely, and that's the reason. They just don't happen that often. It takes an ideal, perfect situation for that to occur. Okay, so this is just one model we looked at. Let me show you another one. This is the Texas Tech model, and it's very good. I use it a lot. I have a lot of faith in its output, and what the trend that it tells me, all that kind of deal. It's a little different than this other model. Now, it does form the storms on the theta E axis, as we mentioned, but it has that axis a little bit more to the east. So, let me blow this up for you so you can see this better. Okay, and let me put some counties on here. All right, let's see here. And let me change, no, I'll just tell you what, let's do this. Use this different color so you can see better. Okay, so it's got a line of broken supercells just west of the Highway 81 corridor, right here. So again, that's a lot farther east than the other model did. It also has the dry line we talked about still out here in the Panhandle. So again, this is not a dry line situation. This is a theta E axis situation and an unstable, uncapped atmosphere. So as we put this into motion, let's see, this is, by the way, for 5 o'clock. So again, this has an earlier show than the last model did. Let's see, we're at 21 hours. Where are we? Okay, so here's 5. Let's see, there's 6 o'clock. Has a cluster of storms here in the metro. I'm going to have to slide this over. Okay, there's 7 o'clock. Still has a cluster of supercell storms here in central Oklahoma. As we go into 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they migrate away, heading up toward Tulsa. Let's see, and then by midnight, they're still up around the Tulsa area, hanging out there for a while. A lot of heavy flash flooding in Tulsa as they stall out and decay. Tornado threat goes away, but the flash flooding continues for several hours there in northeast Oklahoma. So that's the outcome from this model. Like I said, I really like this model. It's fairly accurate, does a fairly good job. Now, as we head into Friday, let's see, it's a little different, which has my interest because it doesn't fire off the afternoon storms or early evening storms like some of the other models do. And this is for Friday. Now, I'm not going to buy that. Just why? Because we're too far out. And too many things can happen overnight in the morning that'll change the atmosphere for tomorrow anyway. So I'm not going to focus too much on Friday, other than to tell you it's a similar setup, not nearly as unstable. Wind shear not quite as good, but good enough for supercells with a few tornadoes. So that's the way it looks now. And then again, that can change, and it probably will, and we'll deal with that tomorrow evening once we're within that 24-hour window. The supercell composite, which tells you most likelihood of seeing supercell storms. It's off the chart here across the area I told you about. All these bright colors just basically indicate where the model parameters are for supercells. It's right here in west central and central Oklahoma during the late afternoon and early evening hours. If we look at what they call the significant tornado parameters, again, sometimes a useful tool, sometimes not. Again, it starts out with any of these supercells basically being significant tornado makers, which means EF2 strength or stronger, and that's all across central Oklahoma too. So that's that particular model. So I showed you two models, very similar output, and really that's all you need to know. I can show you other things, and it'd take up your time. You've got the gist, and I really don't need to show you anything more. So again, I'm going to stop this, and then we'll that way you can play it back if you missed it or came in late. You can share it with your friends, family, that kind of deal. If they don't have my weather app, you're missing out. It is the only weather app that predicts tornadoes before they happen. Trust me, you're going to want that extra lead time. I don't mind if you use other weather apps. That's great. The more information you have. I'm just saying, if you want to know if a tornado's coming before an official warning comes out, use my app. If that's the only reason why I use it, I'm all for that. There's a lot of tech and that went into that, a lot of research and development. So I would take advantage of that. It's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Let's see. So I just wanted to mention that. Like I said, watch the beginning of this, and I'll tell you the key points on safety, what you need to do, your game plan, all that kind of thing. Best thing to tell you is, yes, the data looks a little ominous. It's just data, though, and we're still 24 hours away. And like I said, nothing is exact in this field of science. There are no complete certainties. As we get closer to the window or hour, the data becomes more reliable, and we're able to pinpoint or fine-tune very small details in geographical areas. Say, for example, exactly what counties the storms are going to bubble up in, just because based off the cloud formations that we're looking at. Once that happens and they start developing storms, we know what the storm movement will be, so then we can tell you the path of the storms and where they're going to go, who they're going to affect. And I'll be doing all of that tomorrow in the afternoon and evening. I'll track these tornadic storms for you. It's going to be very simple. It's a very laid-back, anxiety-free approach. I'm going to tell you where they are, what's inside of them, where they're going, who will affect, and if they're going to hold together, and then the strength or the intensity of it. And I tell you on the fly as to whether or not they're going to die out. If I'm not going to sit there and make stuff up and go, well, this thing's rotating, it could do anything any moment. That's not true. A lot of times they don't do anything. And if I see trends of weakening, I'm going to tell you that. There's no need to hype any of these things up. They do that on their own. So that's the approach I'm going to take for tomorrow. Same approach I've taken on all these storms that I've covered. Like I said, go to the Facebook Live page. Make sure you get the live notification turned on. It's at the top where it says follow and like the page. You can also sign up to my YouTube channel. Just search Aaron Tuttle on that, and make sure you get notifications there. You can go to use my weather app. There's a live stream tab on that. My website as well has a live stream tab. So there's many ways to access the live feed when I do cover severe weather. And I think that's going to be it. That's what I want to bring up with your attention for tonight. So I know you guys have a lot of comments. I can see there's over 500 comments. I cannot read them all, obviously. I wish I could. And I know that 2/3 of them are going to be, what about my house? I'm telling you now, if you live in anywhere in central and west central Oklahoma, just be prepared. No need to panic. And that's the other thing. Adults, remember, your kids model and mimic whatever you do. So when you're told to be a role model, that's in every aspect of life. If you're freaking out, guess what your kids are going to do? I understand it's difficult. I understand anxiety, but you're going to have to control yourself, and that will set the tone. That will set the mood for the kids. Then they won't get anxious. So the less anxious everyone is in the family, the more level-headed everybody can be, the more everybody's able to follow a plan, the more everybody's able to think logically to grab what they need, get where they need to go, all of that. And if you haven't practiced that plan, practice it. It's not stupid. It's not dumb. Practice does make perfect. We practice in everything in life. Now, when you go to the range for shooting firearms, you practice on a target. There's a reason for that. You don't want to just be shooting all over the place. Same thing with preparing for a tornado. Let's see. I'm trying to hit all the highlights of what I can think of on the fly. That way, for those of you that are new, I know there's a lot of out-of-state people, and they're like, "What in the world's going on here? I'm out of here." Remember, it's like needles in a haystack. The majority will never see a tornado here in their lifetime. I know you're going to see the news, and when you do, you're going to think they're all over the place, and everything is huge. Everything's big tornadoes. And again, that's not true either. They're very small typically. Let me see here. Somebody asked if I can make a lunchtime video tomorrow. I'm going to try. So yeah, I don't know when it will be, what time. I usually try to do them like about a quarter till noon, but I can't promise you that. I don't know what my lunch plans are yet for tomorrow, but I will look at the morning data. And if I can't do that, I'll at least type something real quick on Facebook so that you can check it out. Let me see here. I don't expect what I'm going to tell you to change. It's typically they don't. It's just kind of anybody that's missed the night before information. And I know a lot of you like to read the blogs. I get that. You don't have the data plan or the time to sit here and watch a whole video. I get that too. I'm just telling you, it's much easier and quicker when I'm in a hurry to just shoot one of these out than it is to spend 30 minutes picking images out, typing up, making sure I don't misspell anything, making sure it's clear, concise, then posting it, then getting links, and then posting those. Trust me, it's an ordeal. So it's much easier a lot of times for those fighting the video craze. Get used to it. The latest research data says by 2020, everything's video. You will be watching everything video on all social media because that's what works, and that's where advertisers are going to go. That's where all the businesses are going to go. So you're just going to have to get used to it if you're not. Data plans will match up. Wi-Fi is going to be there, so it'll all work that direction. It's only 3 years from now when that's going to happen too. It's crazy, but that kind of stuff happens fast in the tech world, and that's completely unrelated to what I was talking about. But we got off on a tangent. Let's see, still over 1,000 of you with me tonight. Okay, somebody's asking about. I'm looking at some comments because I got a second here to breathe. Kansas and Kansas, yes, same thing as Oklahoma. Just be prepared. You're going to have severe storms. Same thing down in Dallas, North Texas. You're going to have severe storms, and yes, likely a couple of tornadoes in both states in those areas. So the advice I gave for Oklahomans is the same for you guys as well. Let me think here. I think that was about it. Now, you can choose to watch the TV guys, and some of you may be flipping right now to go and do that, and that's fine. I got no problem with that. Just know that they're looking at the same data I'm looking at. It's just in the way that you present it without getting everybody all worked up. The world's going to end. Yeah, we're probably going to have some bad storms tomorrow, and yeah, we're going to have some tornadoes, and yes, some people are going to get affected by that. But again, the idea here is for everybody to stay calm, cool, collected, and have a plan, and then we'll be all right. We'll get through this one, and then we'll deal with Friday when it gets here as well. Let me see here. I think that was about it. I've gone on way longer than I anticipated anyway, so I'm going to stop this video, and then that way anybody that hasn't watched it, then go back and play it. Please share with your friends and family, and as well as my weather page. Share that Facebook page. Tell everybody about my app. Share that as well if you can. I'd appreciate that. And I will be looking out for you tomorrow. Keep you guys safe. So that's about it for me. Take care. Have a great night.